Hello, I'm John Furrier here at theCUBE, here in San Francisco at Fort Mason as part of Cerebras SUPERNOVA event. It's actually turning into a conference, oversubscribed, over 2,000 people. Bill Tsai is with me, chairman of ACTAI Global, an organization, a micro community, as coined by The Information. One of the best, actually called out as one of the best groups of targeted entrepreneurs working on athletes, art, competitiveness, all that great stuff. Bill, great to see you. Thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Thank you for having me, John. It was a pleasure.
As always, ACTAI Global, great organization. You had a great event in the Dominican Republic. Heard Guns N' Roses was there, one of the musicians there. They're involved in some of your business. I talked to one of your companies, that was streaming company you invested in. The Maui event, I got an event in Greece.
We're going to have you on Maui, filming and taking kite surfing lessons. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, great community of leaders getting together, cross-section, interdisciplinary, really thinking about the big problems. Going to be fun, but also productive. But let's get into some of the things. Obviously, people who know you, you're a legendary investor, #1 employee at TSMC, as well as a zillion other great investors. You got a taste for the trends. What's going on now? You're seeing a global economy. You had Hut 8 that you invested is now part of American Bitcoin. You're starting to see a sovereignty kind of vibe going on with crypto. You're starting to see decentralized becoming back to where it was almost like, I'd say 8 years ago, when it was really kind of an alpha tech problem. Now you got a lot of AI coming in.
Yeah.
AI and blockchain communities kind of have a similar, it rhymes, doesn't it?
It does, actually, so I guess to hit a bunch of those points, because you had so many in that first line of questioning. So just to help people understand what ACTAI Global is, the acronym stands for Athletes, Conservationists, Technologists, Artists, and Innovators. We hold a series of events around the world with people from all of those disciplines. We did happen to have Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses and Apple from the Black Eyed Peas on a private island in the Philippines, so that we do things on the Dominican Republic, but this one was with the Ayala family and corporation in the Philippines. The trends that you mentioned a lot of them. I did start in Silicon, and I became a venture capitalist in 1991, so it's been a good 34 years, probably for your audience. I've been funding companies since before you were born, but I moved up the stack from chips to communications equipment, started a data center company in the 90s for the internet build out, took some time off in year 2000 when the shit hit the fan, came back into the industry in 2003 for Web 2.0 and started doing those companies in machine learning and blockchain. And so here we are in this gigantic confluence of AI, blockchain, and a coming energy shortage. So you start with more questions and I'll move into where we go from there.
That's great. Thanks for summarizing that better than I did. So good. The energy piece is a big one. And you're starting to see chips and systems get designed differently.
Yes.
For power.
Yes.
Because of the short. I mean, data centers, I think you said in theCUBE last time you were on our studio, data centers are all sold out.
Yes.
What's the answer? Is that more of a grid computing framework? What's your vision?
Well, okay, so I think the energy, so we've got all of this massive investment happening in AI. Companies like NVIDIA, at the scale that they are, generating hundreds of billion, $100 billion a year of cash flow, that whole trend may stop. And so I'm going to frame this in a couple ways. A year ago at this time, I was looking at data from a bunch of researchers on how much energy would be required to fuel the data centers that had been planned, announced, and funded in the next 5 years. That amount of energy was the equivalent of 40 million American homes, and there's about 100 million American homes now that have been built over almost 100 years. So that's kind of a choke point. Eric Schmidt recently testified in front of Congress. Now, his numbers are kind of off the charts compared to everybody else's, but his estimate is that data centers today run 3% of America's energy. By 2027, it will be 97% of America's energy. And to accomplish that, we need 27 gigawatts. 1 gigawatt is the equivalent of a nuclear power plant. So in his off-the-charts estimates, we need 27 nuclear power plants in 2 years, and in the following 3...
Just to service the existing
data center demand. Yes, the forecasted data center demand, yes. And in the following 3 years, we need 63 more. Now, I don't know if those estimates are accurate, but Hut 8 Mining, we started as a division of Bitfury Bitfury was founded in 2011 or 12.
Yep.
By 2017, we are operating 800 megawatts of electricity mining Bitcoin. That sounds like a lot. We carved off 100 million watts, took that public, that's Hut 8 Mining. Carved off another 100 million watts or so, that's a public company, Cipher Mining. As of last year, we were running about 600 megawatts just in that subsidiary with a gigawatt in the pipeline. We're now operating 1.3 gigawatts with 12 gigawatts in the pipeline. So Eric's estimate of 27 gigawatts more needed isn't maybe so
you're
off the
kind
mark.
of at a practical level at that now.
Yes, so we're now basically transitioning Hut 8 to become an energy infrastructure company. 2 subsidiaries. One is a Bitcoin mining sub that is now renamed American Bitcoin. Trump family and affiliates own 20% of that. That's going public as a separate company in the fall.
Yep.
And then we have a data center company building GPU data centers called High Rise AI. And then the 12 gigawatts of optioned electricity, that will be provisioned as managed services.
You're building the grid.
We're trying to.
You're trying to build the grid.
We're trying to. Yes.
Well, this brings up a couple of things I want to get your thoughts on, because when you're talking, first of all, thank you for the primary data, because that's actually good data. We're going to mark the tape on that one. We'll come back to that as a highlight. But that brings up kind of the entrepreneurship, because whenever there's a problem,
yes,
entrepreneurs fill the void. So there'll be a creative solution.
Yes.
There are some lines of sight on some decentralized approaches. We had the crypto trailblazers in our studio. Some Stanford young entrepreneurs are working on there. So this is where innovation happens, Bill. You've seen this movie before.
Well,
what's your take on this?
Well, this is a giant one. So I think what's going to happen resembles a little bit of what happened in the 90s when the telephone system in this country got completely redone from circuit switching to packet switching to allow the internet to exist as it exists today. If you can remember anyone in this audience, back to the 80s, there was only one real phone company and a bunch of little cellular operators, but AT&T ruled it all. The government, by 1994, realized that it was obstructing progress, and so that there had to be deregulation. There was something called the Telecom Deregulation Act of 1994 that split AT&T up into a long-distance carrier and a bunch of regional Bell operating companies. Here was Pac Bell. There was New York Telephone, Ameritech, et cetera. If that had not happened, I would postulate that the internet wouldn't exist like it exists today. We have the same problem now.
Because they would not have innovated or invested.
Telephone companies were charging $1 a minute for long distance calls, and now you can do that on VoIP for free, right? So there was a lot of resistance. Today, the energy infrastructure of the United States is not unlike what the telephone company used to be like. It's it started as a centralized architecture, pushing electrons to the edge. In 2018, a miracle happened, and that miracle was that all forms of renewable energy, hydro, wind, solar, everything, dropped below the cost of burning fossil fuels in terms of cost per kilowatt hour. So now you have this old infrastructure with a lot of things sitting on the edge, pushing electrons in, but the system wasn't designed to be bidirectional. The phone company had to go through a total change with a protocol layer on top of it called TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol, that allowed it to become a context-aware cloud that knew everything on the endpoints and could direct traffic in between. I would posture that unless we do something like that to allow for bidirectional sources of energy and a context-aware cloud to know where there are choke points and how to onboard new electricity and provision the economics accordingly, we're going to end up like Spain and Portugal and have massive blackouts in this country.
It's an energy switching network.
Basically.
That's what you're getting at.
We have to have a smart network with load balancing, multiple sources
so
in
let me ask, because I know you're also been very successful. You also have a big financial brain as well. How do you structure this? Because maybe the asset class of venture capital can have a breakthrough, but and you talked about the bells being broken up into little baby bells. I used to call them regional bells, as you called them, RBOX or baby bells, they called them. That was almost an asset decoupling, and it was also decentralizing the bells.
And we have to do
like
that.
Decentralization might be in line there. So how do you structure that as an asset? Because remember when cells exploded, cell towers, they were just a collection of cells that someone put them under a corporation. Is it going to be like a corporate asset management company, the government, or is it private?
Well,
What's your vision on that?
I think that so right now, the infrastructure side of provisioning electricity has, in today's market, perverse incentives. So it's basically the model for the transmission carriers today is cost plus with regulated public utility commissions as oversight, right? So the incentive is to pad the cost structure as much as you can, to have a little bit of margin on it, and there's no competition. So I think, one, we have to open up the transmission carriage space like they did in the 90s, where people will remember Quest Communications.
I do, yes.
With the railway cars, with the trenchers, right?
Yeah.
Building alternative long distance fiber.
Yeah.
And then the creation of alternative carriers at the edges. So the RBOX plus the CLEX, competitive local exchange carriers, and the ILEX, the inter-exchange points. And so I think in a world where there's many suppliers of electricity pushing stuff in, you need a software layer that's on top that is a little bit like a protocol that allows for billing, provenance, and it will be decentralized.
Bill, you're triggering me from the old telecom bust of 2000. Remember the CLEX wouldn't open up the last mile?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
the last mile, they did everything right except for to the home.
History rhymes, because the last mile is the most expensive part, right? Because you get economies of scale in the backbone, but when you have to provision lots and lots of endpoints, and there's a rural farmhouse 50 miles away, and you have to run one line for that, everyone else has to subsidize that. So it's very, very difficult to be at the edge.
So the economics matter. So
they do. So it's hand in hand, entrepreneurs and government.
All right, so how do we take that learnings and project it onto where we are today? You got decentralized is back. You're starting to see blockchain
and AI together, and crypto as the
money mechanism.
Transaction layer. It can do that. So I have funded a company called PowerLedger. PowerLedger basically has a decentralized peer-to-peer energy trading system. So, for example, like 10 years ago, people that were Bitcoin mining in Menlo Park, the electricity rates go like this through the day, right? So if there's high load, it's 24 cents a kilowatt hour, maybe different now. If it's a low load, it's 10. And so you could have someone next door to you with solar panels on their house generating electricity, and the PG&E may be buying it back for 2 cents. So if that's my next door neighbor, why should I pay 24 cents when the electrons are coming in next door at 2? Right? So to the extent you could have a peer-to-peer billing system that recognizes who's the source and who's the drain, and they can sell to me contractually with blockchain as the backbone, crypto as the payment mechanism, and then I think AI as a layer inside. Energy companies today, they have lots of data on usage. They have data sets for temperature, like when it's hot, the air conditioners are going. There should be a way to create an LLM, or something like, it's not actually language, but people know what LLMs are. If you had an energy LLM inside every electricity company, you could have automatically load balancing systems.
You could also democratize the energy usage. So for instance, remember community networks, community Wi-Fi? You could have community energy.
Yes.
Where actually the collective could say, hey, let's mine some Bitcoin.
Right.
Buy that new pool for the community center, or fund some school or education.
There are places in the United States where there's wind power and solar, where because the generation is lumpy, there might be too much energy produced at night, and those generators are willing to pay you 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour to burn the energy off. So you could attach Bitcoin mining on there and pile up money, and then use that to buy the electricity back when you need it. So that Bitcoin mining is a proxy for batteries. It's storing the electron usage as currency to be used later, as opposed to electrons in some kind of a bucket.
So if you're watching, this is what they talk about at the ACTAI Global events.
Yes, we do.
It's a fun micro community, but they actually have serious conversations. Bill, you know that I love micro communities. I love Trust Networks, theCUBE, and NYSE with Brian
You've
Bauman.
built some great ones, John.
You have one too, but you guys are recognizing the information as one of the top micro communities in tech.
Yes.
Some other ones, fly fishing, poker. You guys are athletes in kite surfing. The role of networks now are super important. Could you share your vision, because you and I share the same passion, that trust networks can live on top of the real world?
Yes.
Because we are, as humans, real world assets. And we're not on chain yet, but maybe our digital twins will be. But this convergence of our digital lives and physical space. Share your vision, because you have a great vision.
Yeah, historically, everything comes from community. So I think you were in the Palo Alto area in the 80s, yes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so from 1979 till 1987, there were a group of kids that would meet in rooms at Stanford, at Slack, and other places. They were total unknowns. But who did they become? Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Bill Gates, Paul Allen, the people that founded Sun, Alan Shugart, Nolan Bushnell that started Atari. They were all there to show their pieces of wood with parts on them or little programs that would run on these little hacked up things because they wanted to share information and progress the industry. And that became a multi-trillion dollar, just one company's $3 trillion, right? So trillions of dollars came out of that community. And
they're
so
collaborating openly, no judgment, crazy ideas.
Yes.
By the way, Slack is not Slack as we know it, and it's Slack as the Stanford Linear Accelerator.
Exactly.
On Sand Hill Road.
Yes.
Yeah, glory days. What's the equivalent now? Basically, it's like Discord, it's servers, it's WhatsApp groups, it's the new collaboration is what?
Yeah, I think, with the birth of the internet and the ability to have geographic distributed reach, people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody listening to this podcast or broadcast, they're a member of some online community, whether it's a Facebook group or it's a Discord server or something like that. So there are hundreds of ways now to share, collaborate, and grow the knowledge base together. And when you mix people and ideas and problems to be solved together, you come up with creative solutions if you've got really cool entrepreneurs.
I think what you're doing with ACTAI Global is very good because you bring face-to-face as a more of a reinforcement to the digital.
Yes.
And that's intimate. It doesn't have to be big numbers because the big numbers are on the internet.
Well, there are some things that you can become aware of online, but you can't really learn unless you're talking to other people. Kite surfing is one of those. Starting companies is one of those. Well, you can't just read a little manual and say, I'm now a startup entrepreneur and just do it. You have to talk to people that have had experience doing it and learn from them too.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting mentored on the kite surfing because I am a beginner. I watched a lot of YouTube videos.
Yes, well, and there you go. You can learn like that too.
Not really. I got to put it into practice. Bill, great to have you on. Thanks for dropping in. Again, as always, what you're doing, you're a great leader in the industry and really appreciate your brain power and your investments, really targeting kind of the impact, but also innovation.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
They all roll together. Thank you, John.
I'm John Furrier here at theCUBE. We are at the Supernova event, now turning into a conference. Over 2,000 people are here. Of course, theCUBE is here. We'll do whatever it takes. This is our pop-up CUBE. I'm John Furrier, your host. Thanks for watching.